Hey everyone, as you can see, I am not here today. I told you guys that I wasn't going to be here. I'm in Florida today. Well, actually, I'm coming back from Florida today. Um, I hope you guys are being on your best behavior and keep in mind that I will be watching what you are doing on the computer. So today you should have your computer out. You should have done your extra math already. Remember, that's only like 10 to 12 minutes, and you're done with that when it tells you to get off. And then we are now going to do notes. I need you to make sure you get this notes paper so you're following along. So you need to have this notes paper with you. And then you're going to do a Desmos after this notes. When I come back tomorrow, I'm going to be looking, did your extra math get done? Do you have these notes completed in your binder? And do you have the Desmos done? If you are missing something, you need to make sure it gets done. Okay, enough with that. Enough with the expectations. Y'all know what y'all are 8th graders. You should know how to get your work done. So our learning goals for today, our first one, we've got 2. I can decide whether or not two figures are congruent using rigid transformations. Again, rigid transformations are the 3 that we have been working with: translation, reflection, and rotation. If you can use those 3 types of movements to get the first one to match up with the second one, the first shape to match with the second shape, it is congruent. Those 3 transformations keep shapes congruent. If you do those motions, if you were to translate and then rotate something and they didn't match up, then it's not congruent, okay? Rigid transformations will always keep your shapes congruent. Our other learning goal is I understand whether or not congruent sides are enough to determine forgot how to spell for a second. To determine if 2 polygons are congruent. Okay, so there are our 2 learning goals. So for our notes, to show 2 figures are congruent, you align one with the other using a sequence of rigid transformations. So this is what we were working with last week. We learned like the actual definition for rigid transformations keeps them congruent, and a sequence of them like we were working on Wednesday last week. Doing more than one transformation is a sequence. If those transformations you do are translation, reflection, or rotation, your shapes are going to be congruent. Distances between corresponding points on congruent figures are always equal. So the side lengths, the distance between one point and the other on the shapes are going to be the same as long as you're looking at corresponding points. If you're looking at A and B on this one, but then you're looking at B prime and C prime on this shape, those aren't corresponding. You need to make sure that it's A and B, A prime and B prime. Make sure they are corresponding. Okay, so this says explain why each figure below is not congruent to A, B, C, D. So here we have A, B, C, D. These two sides, A, B, and DC, are 3 units. B, C, A, D are 5 units. So our shape EFGH, we also have sides that are 3 units and sides that are 5 units, but they are not corresponding. So while these ones share angle G, our sides up here that are both 5, they are parallel. So they are not corresponding sides. The notes that Desmos, or the reason for Desmos says, is they have the same side lengths. But their orders, okay, I don't know if I like what this says. Hold on. Go back. But their corresponding side lengths are not the same. So again, what I mean by that, and what Desmos was trying to say was, their orders can't be matched as you go around each polygon. So these polygons can't be congruent. What this is saying is when you look at the original A, B, C, D, it goes 3, 5, 3, 5 as you go around. This one is 3, 5, 5, 3. So that's what it means by orders, but I didn't really like the way that it said that. Okay, our next one. So the way that Desmos was talking about that order that I was talking about, this one is 3, 5, 3, 5. This one here is also 3, 5, 3, 5. So the reason why I didn't like that is because this one also is not congruent. So they have the same corresponding side lengths, but, and what I mean again by corresponding side lengths, BC would correspond with JK here. They are in the same spot. And even if this was rotated, JK would still match up with BC. Anyways, but different corresponding angles. Excuse me, guys. So the sides, the corresponding sides, and the corresponding angles need to be congruent. Okay, and our last one in OPQ. This one, we have O and P, N and Q are corresponding and the same, but NO is not the same as its corresponding AB. It also has the same angles, but again, these side lengths are not the same here. So this one, they have the same, they have the same corresponding angles, but different corresponding sides. We're going to say side lengths. So all of the corresponding sides need to be the same. All of the corresponding angles need to be the same. So using patty paper, for example, if I'm using patty paper, I can bring this one over here. You can see that this side length is the same, this side length is the same, but these two are not. Over here, this side length is the same. This side length is the same. But because the angles don't match up, even though I can rotate this and this side length is the same, I can't rotate this part too. Or like I can't keep this part the same and then rotate this. So the angles of these shapes are different. And then this one here, angles are the same. The top and bottom side lengths are the same, but my side ones are different. Even if I was to rotate this shape, notice that they are not the same. Okay. So that is this here. Our summary question says, what are some ways you can check if two figures are congruent? So I'm going to give you two ways here. One, if we copy one figure on patty paper and move the paper so the copy covers the other figure exactly, then they are congruent. So again, I was using my patty paper. When I try to match this up, it doesn't match. When I try to match this up, it doesn't match. When I try to match this up, it doesn't match. Therefore, they are not congruent. The second way, we can prove that two figures are congruent by describing a sequence of rigid transformations that moves one figure onto the other. So they match up exactly. Again, if you use translation, reflection, rotation, and they match up, it's congruent. If you use translation, reflection, rotation, and they do not match up, then they are not congruent. Okay, so those are the notes. Then we also have the Desmos for today that I need you guys to look at and work on. Hello, Zoom. Let me share my screen. Give me a second, guys. I need to find it. Oh, of course, this screen is not currently on my Desmos. There we go. Okay, so here is our Desmos. I'm not going to go through all of it with you, but I'm going to go through some of it. So this says, are the two figures shown here congruent? Use the digital patty paper. It says tracing paper, but same thing. If it helps you with your thinking. So you can put this on top of the shape, click trace, and it's going to draw it just like it would patty paper. And then you can move it side to side. That's our translation. You can turn it, that is our rotation. And you can flip it, which is our reflection. So I'm going to bring this down here. I'm going to flip it, and I'm going to rotate it and see if they match up. I see that they're not matching up this way. Maybe I have the wrong side. So maybe I'll flip it this way and try a different side. So notice I'm doing these different transformations and I cannot get them to match up. I'm rotating, I'm reflecting, I'm translating, and I cannot get them to match up. I'm trying different things, I'm trying different sides, different angles, and it's not working. So these two figures are not congruent, and I want you to use something from our summary question. So you can say that when I use patty paper, I can't get the copy to cover the original, or you could say I can't use rigid transformations to get A onto B. This one, I need you to grab another worksheet. So there is a second worksheet that has these 4 shapes on it, and it has lines that says notes under it. You are going to use patty paper, and you're going to use like the different rigid transformations to find out, are the different shapes on here congruent. So let's say you're figuring this out, you find out that pair A is congruent. You're going to click it. Then you find out that pair C is congruent. You're going to click it. So for all the ones that are congruent, and this is just an example, you guys can look, some of them are obvious, others not so obvious. So use patty paper, use rigid transformations, because even though it might look like it, it might not. So you're going to select the ones on this screen that are congruent. Here, another student says that this pair is congruent. Which of these arguments is the most convincing? So while all 3 of these statements are true statements, which one is a more convincing argument as to this is why they are congruent? This one here, revisiting pair B, it's going to do some transformations. And number 1, it needs you to describe the sequence of transformations. So I need you to fully describe which transformations are happening, how far, which direction, that kind of stuff. Then explain how you know these figures are not congruent. For B, he notices that these are not congruent. Notices each side length is equal to the side length in that. So he's saying they are congruent. Is that enough information? So because the side lengths are the same, is it still congruent? Yes or no? And explain why, explain your thinking. And then the fourth one, describe a sequence of transformations. So how can I get this one to match up with this one? Fully describe the transformations. Which transformation? How many, which direction? How many degrees or units? All of that info. This one here, y'all can skip this one. Y'all can skip this one. Then you'll listen synthesis, and then your cool down. And then just like last week, if we got to it last week, because I'm doing this on Wednesday, tell me how well you understood this math lesson. Okay? So I hope you guys got everything done today. If you have any questions, please write them down, save them for me tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow. And we're gonna start talking about congruence, looking at angles more. But again, oh guys, my face. I'm taking this video on Wednesday. If you have any questions for me, please let me know, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye, y'all.